What are some moments in movies that made you go, "Ah, it doesn't work like that"? Rolling out of a speeding car. Nah man. You're about to look like you made out with a cheese grater. My dad was a pipe engineer for 35 years. Every time he watches the Titanic, when Jack is handcuffed to the pipe, he has to point out to everyone in the room how the curved elbow pipe in the shot didn't exist at the time. The correct setup should have been two straight pieces soldered together to make a corner pipe. I love him and his obscure dad facts. Edit. I just showed this to my dad. He's not familiar with Reddit, but he appreciates the love. I've been in IT for 35 years. So near every movie that has any tech in it has some stupid. It's even more irksome when they could have been accurate, but didn't. People in movies being scientists, meaning they are good at all forms of science. Biology, electrical engineering, physics, programming, communication protocols, advanced mathematics, hacking, robotics. Sure, you could have some knowledge in all of those fields, but specializing in just one of them takes decades. These characters are usually wizards in all fields. Pretty much any scene that involves biologists. Look. The DNA is a perfect match, as the computer superimposes two identical graphics that are basically just the symbol for DNA. Avalanches. Particularly when someone gets buried and then just bursts out of the snow unharmed. Avalanche debris sets like concrete. You're not getting out without help. And most deaths, injuries occur from being bashed up during the slide. So you're not likely to emerge unscathed if it's big enough to bury you. Crawling through air ducts. Most aren't that big. Or they aren't that strong to not bend or break at all. Edit. Yes, they are also incredibly filthy. I have taken out enough duct work to know that you could almost create another person with how many skin cells end up in your air ducts. I also am not doubting the strength of the large threaded supports some ductwork has. I'm doubting the strength of the 20-gauge metal to not end bend in the slightest under the weight of a full-grown man. Pumping the shotgun every time you mean business. You're just ejecting fresh shells onto the floor. 90% of the depictions of women going into labor. It's rarely, "Mom feels fine all day" greater than suddenly has one sharp contraction greater than water immediately breaks and makes a puddle on the floor. Everyone I know who's given birth has had at least a few hours contracting before the water breaking. If it breaks at all. And then it can be even longer before you're in active labor. There is no cleaning up before or after. Everyone is just ready to go all the time. An explosion nearby and everyone talks and hears fine. I love that scene in The Other Guys about this. Our hero is beaten, stabbed and shot. Next scene he wakes up bandaged in the hospital. Within seconds, he yanks out all the tubes and wires. Jumps out of bed. Finds his suddenly clean clothes. And rushes out to continue his quest. In the next scene he's full of energy as he pursues his foe. And while his face may have a single scratch or bandaged cut, usually above one eye, there's no sign of what would ordinarily be a yellow-purple swollen pulpy mess with blood-red eyes. In Interstellar, when they have combines running through a field of green corn, they spent a ton of time getting little details of astrophysics right. Then fell flat on their face in the depiction of farming. Every time they perform CPR in a movie. Bonus points if the victim wakes up immediately and is totally fine and talking. It's always a pet peeve of mine when in movies. They're working on a computer and the thing is constantly chirping and beeping with some kind of dumb sci-fi looking interface to it. Like, dude, we all have computers now. We all know software doesn't do that, and if it did it would be annoying as. I've even seen scenes, can't remember which movies, where they're clearly using Photoshop or something similar and it's constantly making little sci-fi noises. All the movies with science babble in them. Or tech babble. All of them. At least it's pretty funny. Just stick dark energy, or quantum physics, somewhere. The quantum dark energy is spreading to his. Hacking is babbling about "I'm in" and you always have to trace the source, I'm pretty sure. I'm in his hentai collection. Tracing the sources now. I watched a movie once where geologists ignored signs of a massive natural disaster, blaming it on sensors. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like real scientists don't hesitate to double-check edit. Seems like scientists ignore sensors in a lot of movies. Dante's Peak, The Day After Tomorrow, Spider-Man, and 2012. I'm specifically talking about the wave. When a baby is born and it's a beautiful, squeaky clean 3 to 6 month old, twice the size of a newborn. They are tiny, goo-covered, swollen purple aliens IRL. There was a scene in the G.I. Joe Cobra movie where they torpedo icebergs. And then they sank. Yeah. Ice doesn't change its density to be heavier than water just because explosions. When they pull the fire alarm. And the sprinklers set off. When a lighter sets a sprinkler off, it will. And all the heads go off. Each head is independent of all others. And set off by heat. 5 seconds of keyboard clicking, I'm in. Now we have access to all the super secret classified government files and can control anything that runs on electricity anywhere in the world. Basically any time they show lab work being done. They either don't wear PPE. Or they do wear it but don't wear it properly. Or for the right things. Food, beverage, chewing gum in a lab is a big no. If some character in a drama TV show walked into my lab demanding results, the first thing I'd do is give them safety glasses. The extent that people can get punched in the face and just keep going. No one is having Jason Bourne-style fights and able to keep going for as long as they all do. It always takes me out of the movie when say someone will be like, "You'll never believe what's on the news." Put it on. Their TV is off. They turn the TV on. And it's on the exact station of said news crew. At the exact moment they're talking about said topic. That's not how it works. And it could be anything. Not just news. They turn on the TV and it just so happens to be on what they're looking for. Just a small aspect of television, movies that takes me out of it and I'm always like, that's not how this works. Lol. Not a movie but in the show, when he gives that guy the latte with nuts in it and he drops dead less than a minute later, nah. It takes a bit longer than that. It would be a much longer, painful demise. Most explosions. I was in ammo and it ruined most movies for me. They're still fantastic movies and I love them all. But when a building explodes you're not gonna walk out casually barely beating the flames. And those thousands of pieces of wood aren't all going to magically not impale you as they're hurtled all around you with incredible force. That thing where a tech lab procedure suddenly takes half the time because someone offers to pay more. No. If it needs to be centrifuged for 24 hours it's still going to take 24 hours even with 100K on the table. Also not as jarring. But everyone always wakes up with perfect makeup and no one ever seems to clean their face. Pretty much any scene where there's some magic computer program that turns blurry, heavily pixelated images into razor-sharp photos? Yeah. That doesn't exist. The way people in the military talk in movies just kills me. I don't care so much about getting some details wrong. And these days the advisors seem to do pretty well with keeping it realistic enough to pass. But no military advisor can help bad dialogue. I'll put it this way. Actors are so bad at being convincing military members. Lee Ermey famously did the role himself in Full Metal Jacket after being initially hired on only as an advisor. Specifically, it's all of the stupid writers think we say to each other. No one will ever ask permission to speak freely. They just speak. We don't salute constantly. It's used as a greeting. Not something we do as we leave to carry out orders. We are not that formal. It gets ridiculous. Watching these actors talk like robot people and overuse jargon. Like, I'm not using brevity codewords in normal conversation unless I'm being a smartass. Military people just talk normally. Formality is pretty much limited to ceremonies. When you're in trouble. Or if you are addressing people way senior to you in some kind of formal setting. Even then. Plain speak is more common than over-the-top sir sandwiches. And out-of-place jargon. EpiPen usage. You have to call the ambulance or rush to the hospital after administering it. EpiPens are not a magical fix, they simply buy you enough time to get to medical care. It bothers me relentlessly when movies show someone being given an EpiPen and they just take a big gasp of air and go back to eating dinner like nothing happened. Sorry if someone has already commented this. I didn't want to scroll through all of them. Chloroform. It takes several minutes to knock you out. And you won't be out for that long. I promise I know this because we use chloroform to clean stuff in the lab I internet. And my advisor told me this. In case the FBI is reading this. If someone is falling, and say Superman catches them, They're actually because the forces involved are still going to tear them apart. Superman would have to catch them and decelerate them over time. But this almost never happens. He just catches them. You also can't just lift an enormously heavy object. The object has to have the structural integrity to remain in one piece. All that pressure at one point, Superman's hand, would make the object break apart. Edit. Okay. Superman was just the first example I could think of. And they happen to have explained it. It happens in lot of other things. Particularly the whole catching someone who's falling thing.